Hello, everybody, and thank you to anyone who is joining us. Today, I will be interviewing Sarah Cooke to talk about her current Kickstarter campaign for the comic series No Spell Lasts Forever. They are currently working on crowdfunding issue 4. And actually, I noticed that your Kickstarter campaign has already reached its funding goal, so that's super exciting.
Oh, thanks.
Um, but that doesn't mean that people watching can't still support it. So if you are interested in checking out the Kickstarter for yourself, you can find it at this tiny URL link. And I also did put a link in the description of this video. So please check it out if you're interested in learning more about the projects. Um, with that being said, Sarah, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. I am a comics writer. My biggest project is No Spell Lasts Forever. We're 4 issues in. It's a 6 issue series. Um, I also edited a sci-fi anthology with lesser known comics last year called Faster Than Light. And we have volume 2 of that coming out later this year. And yeah, those are kind of the biggest projects going on right now.
Awesome. That all sounds really cool. I'm excited to talk to you about your work. So, now let's talk about No Spell Lasts Forever specifically. So, there might be people watching who have never read it before. I know I haven't gotten the chance to read it yet since you reaching out for this interview was actually the first I heard about it. But it looks really cool.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
so please give us a brief description of what it's about.
Yeah, so the art is by Easy DeSavino, who's super talented.
Mhm.
And the story is a modern fantasy, and it's about a magic using criminal who kind of meets an early death and makes a deal with the devil for a second chance at life, but has to decide if she's the kind of person who can go through with it. Um, she's kind of been told, like, since she was a kid, that her magic is dangerous and that she's kind of like dangerous because of it. And so she has all of these sort of negative preconceptions about herself, and her arc is all about her like trying to find out, well, is that true, or can I actually be a better person? So
Nice.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna quickly share my screen so that people can actually see what the Kickstarter looks like, and you can see it has it has exceeded its goal. Already has 90 backers. It's super cool. Um, there's a Kickstarter video, and you can see some of the art that Sarah was talking about was illustrated by Izzy DeSavino. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Um, but yeah, this is really cool. I am very into fantasy comics, and I did want to share for those of you who haven't had the chance to read the story yet. Um, Even though they are kickstarting for issue 4, there is like a catch-up
Yeah.
bundle I noticed right here. So you can get copies, at least digital copies of the previous issues, um, and then buy the new one, and you'll be fully caught up.
Yeah, exactly.
So who would you say is like your target audience for this comic series?
I think people who read a lot of the things that I read. I read a lot of fantasy comics. I've been reading a lot of like Lee Bardugo lately, or like Rebecca Yarros, Fourth Wing kind of stuff. So anyone who's into that kind of like fantasy slash romantasy genre, it'll be right up their alley.
Yeah. Well, now I'm curious to hear what are maybe some of your biggest comic book inspirations. I know you just named a couple like um, traditional writers who are really popular, and I love Lee Bardugo myself. But I'm curious about like what are some of your favorite
Yeah.
comic writers or comic series?
I love James Tynion, obviously not fantasy. But I love his writing style. I love how atmospheric A lot of his stuff is. What else? I love Kelly Sue DeConnick. I love one of my favorites is that I just kind of reread a little bit of lately was Blankets by Craig
Oh,
Thompson. Just because it feels like poetic to me. I'm looking at my shelf. Oh, Emil Ferris. My favorite thing is Monsters is another favorite. I just recently read volume 2 of that. Um, so many good ones.
yeah. Oh my gosh, you actually named a few that I haven't gotten around to reading myself, but I totally need to. So I'm definitely going to keep that in mind. Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm also a fan of James Tinian the Fourth. You said not really a fantasy writer because I do think he's most well known for his horror comics.
Mhm.
But actually, I one of my favorite comics that I read from him was Wind, which
I
is
keep meaning to read that one.
yeah. So I mean, if you're a fantasy comic writer, you got to read Wind.
Yeah, I feel like I'd love it.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, now to talk about this Kickstarter specifically, because I'm sure we have a lot of people watching who are, comic book writers or artists themselves and maybe want to crowdfund their work. I am curious, what are your tips for creating a successful Kickstarter or crowdfunder campaign?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing for me is building a community beforehand.
Mhm.
Because I spent a lot. Well, kind of stepping back. I connected with the Comics Launch group, Tyler James's Comic Launch group. Um, Even before I did the first issue of No Spell. And I think having them to kind of sort of bounce ideas off and learn a lot about Kickstarter. And then a group there where we all sort of share each other's Kickstarters as they're live has been really helpful. And I spent a lot of time beforehand also just building up a mailing list and trying to build up a little bit of an audience on social media. Um, I think that's probably the biggest is just make sure that you have good community and an audience beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, since we're talking about finding community and we are the Columbus Cartoon
Yes.
Coalition, I feel like I have to take this opportunity to promote our own Discord, which I know you're a part of, and we're so glad that you are a part of it.
Yeah, the Discord's been great.
Yeah, because this is a great community where you can get feedback from
Hmm.
other artists and writers about your work and also like promote your work. Um, I know that you've been promoting your Kickstarter in there, and I actually recently finished a crowdfunding campaign of my own, and a lot of my supporters were from C3 as well. So,
Yep, I've had C3 supporters on past stuff too.
yes. So if anybody happens to be watching and is not yet a part of the C3 Discord, please join. It is obviously, as the name suggested, designed for people in Columbus, but we do have people in the group who don't live in Columbus. So you're still welcome to like join us and join our community just to hang out with fellow cartoonists. We love that. Um, and you also kind of talked about the importance of like building up an audience through other means, like an email newsletter. And I happen to know that you have a Substack that you write
Yeah.
on. Um, would you like to talk a little bit about the kinds of things you write on Substack?
Yeah, so the Substack is it's a weekly newsletter that comes out on Thursdays. And I talk a lot about kind of my process that goes into the projects that I'm working on at the time, and also a little bit about what I'm reading at the time. Um, so yeah, that's weekly every Thursday. And I've got some comics up there too, some short comics posted on one of the pages up there too, if anyone wants to check those out.
Well, that's awesome. I know I follow a couple different comic creators on Substack, and it's nice to be able to
Mhm.
get that behind the scenes look into the creative
Mhm.
process and share inside work. And I think that also like is a useful promotional tool. It gets people invested because if they see the
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff like as it's actually being created, and it
Yeah.
makes them like enticed to get the final product.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Like I follow other creators on Substack and when they talk about what they're doing and then by the time it's live, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been following that all along.
I know. And I just get so excited when like someone I've been following comes out with a new project or I see a new
Yeah.
Kickstarter, I'm immediately like, I have to check it out.
It is exciting.
Yes. Um, so now to once again kind of get back to the original discussion topic of No Spell Lasts Forever.
Mhm.
Um, so you did mention that it is illustrated by the artist Ezedi Savino. Um,
Mhm.
and so since you are the writer and you had the opportunity to collaborate with an artist to actually turn it into a comic, I want to know a bit about your experience, like finding an artist to collaborate with, and what was your experience like? So, um, yeah, I guess we'll just start with like, how did you first connect with this artist?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually the art for the first issue is by another artist. Her name is Aimee Holly. Um, and she was great to work with, and I loved her art too. She was working and going to school, so kind of had to duck out after the first issue. I don't even know how she managed to get the art done for the first issue.
Yeah.
Um, but so she and I were planning issue one, and I wanted to get some promotional art done and some back cover art done. So I found Easy just strangely enough on Fiverr.
Mm.
And he started doing the promo work, and then he did the back cover. And so then when Aimee had to duck out, I knew that Easy was already really familiar with the comic and already knew the tone and the style. And he was great to work with. So it worked out well. It was pretty seamless actually that he just took right over for issue two. Um, and then other artists I've connected with for other projects, mostly through groups I'm in, through the Comics Launch group or through lesser known comics. Uh, that's, I think, probably the majority of the artists I've connected with just through groups like that.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's like it's so important to have that comics community because that's how you're
Mhm.
going to meet new people to collaborate with or like find people to like support you when you need it. So
Yeah.
that's great to hear.
Mhm.
So for once again, our audience members watching who are artists or writers themselves, I'd love to hear what are your tips for like developing a successful collaborative relationship with with an artist.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is it's kind of just making it I don't know, an equal partnership. Um, I think that like even just with the way that I write scripts, I try to be descriptive enough to give the artist like a solid idea of what I'm thinking, but not so over descriptive that they don't have creative freedom. And I think it's kind of that idea, but just with all of your interactions with artists, it's just kind of make it an equal partnership and take their feedback and their suggestions and talk everything through and set expectations and have an understanding of what their schedule is and what your schedule is and just communicate.
Yeah, communication's always key, but of course it's
Yes.
easier said than done.
True.
Well, you also had the opportunity to collaborate with a few different artists to do some cool variant covers, which I
Yeah.
actually want to share some of these on the Kickstarter page. Personally, this first one is my favorite.
I love that one. That
I'm
might
a
be one of
huge
my
fan of
favorite covers,
Cabaret.
period. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was really cool. So for those of you who don't know, this variant cover was inspired by the poster for Cabaret, one of my
Yeah.
all-time favorite movies. Then we've got this variant cover, which says is by Mata Sorcier. Um, and this one as well, which is a very different
Yeah.
art style,
Hmm.
but very cool to see. So I'm kind of curious to hear, how did you find these artists? How did you come up with these variant cover ideas? Give us all the
Yeah.
details.
So the first one, the cabaret one, is by Easy. And he, for every issue that we've done, he's because our main character, Rosette, is just personally really kind of inspired by old noir movies, and she dresses like she's in an old noir movie. So for each issue, he's done a variant that's inspired either by a specific noir movie poster or just the style of those old movie posters. And so he chose Cabaret. That was his idea, and I love what he did with it. I think it's maybe one of my favorite covers from the whole series.
Mhm.
And Mada's, I wanted to do a couple that were just really different stylistically from the rest of the book. And Mada she has a Kickstarter running right now, actually, for her campaign, for her fantasy series called Sacrimony, which is kind of her biggest sort of epic fantasy. But she has another one that's called Buddy and Friend, and she does that style for Buddy and Friend, and I liked it a lot, and it felt really different from the rest of the book. And Matt is a great artist. I connected with her in Comics Launch, and Alan Forbes did the last one. He's another comics launcher, and he did a digital poster from one of my past campaigns, and he's got a series called Red Cat that's done all in that style. So just same kind of thing. I wanted to do something really different that would stand out, and Alan's style is really cool, I think, and really different from Easy's.
Very cool. Well, I do want to let the people watching, if you're interested in the variant covers, once again on the Kickstarter, there is a bundle where you can get all the different covers, or you can choose the one that you prefer. So that's really cool. And you've now mentioned this like comics launch group quite a
Yeah.
few times, so I feel like I need to ask, like, part of me is like, why am I not a part of this group that is apparently so awesome? Can you please tell us more about it?
It is a really cool group. So it was started by Tyler James, who's a writer and creator and artist, and he has an online series of courses for people who are getting started with making comics. And I took those courses, and they were amazing and just super helpful and super specific. And then he has a group for people who have finished the classes. And everyone in that group is just like so talented, and a lot of them have been doing this forever. And it's been a really great um, opportunity for me to learn from some really talented and successful creators.
All right. So I just quickly looked it up because I wanted to make sure I had the spelling right so I could share with people. It looks like it's comics with an
With
X.
an X,
That's the right
yep.
one. Okay. So yes, it is comics launch with an X spelled like this. So if you're interested in learning more about that, that's what you should look up.
I recommend it.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to do a little more research into that because it's my first time hearing about it, but that's awesome. So now that we've talked quite a bit about the Kickstarter, I kind of just want to learn more about you as a creator.
Yeah, definitely.
So I would love to hear what got you into writing comics to begin with.
Yeah. I always have been a writer. Um, and I think comics, I just love the medium, and I kind of had bounced around a lot with writing different types of things. Some short stories. I was writing a lot of poetry for a while, and I still love poetry and write a little bit of it now and then. And I did a lot of like blogging and more journalistic writing for a long time, but I just always loved comics, and I think I probably would have maybe started writing comics a little bit earlier, but I had this like idea in my head that I wouldn't be good at like writing longer series or like doing the kind of like outlining that you need to do for anything longer than like a short story. Like I just um, had convinced myself that I wouldn't be good at it, which was irrational. That was just
Yeah.
my irrational fears. Um, but I wrote a web series, a little TV series with a friend of mine who's a screenwriter, Amy Danzero.
Cool.
And I think that writing that with her, that was longer. We actually did get the first episode produced. They're about 10-minute episodes. Um, and we wrote several of them. So I think kind of writing that with her, and she was someone who, like, I already had a lot of faith in as being really good at story structure and all of the stuff that I felt kind of insecure about, helped me feel more confident writing longer fiction projects. And it was kind of after that that I decided to get into comics because I loved them. And I think it was probably what I had wanted to be doing for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear that you got started writing short stories and are now writing comics. And even though you are working on comic series, it's still like a limited series. So it's
Yeah.
kind of that like sweet spot between doing like a short comic versus like a whole long series or big graphic novel.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that length.
yeah. That's great to hear about. Um, so um aside from No Spell Lasts Forever, then, what other kind of projects have you worked on in the past, or are you working on anything new coming up?
I also edited with lesser known comics a sci-fi anthology called Faster Than Light, and I had a short in that one with the artist Kieran Quinn. And we've got the second volume of that coming out in June. And I'm just starting, like at the very early stages of starting a series that I'm working on with another lesser known comics artist, Dom Monet. And it's a zombie story. It's about a ghost. The main character is a ghost. And she has unfinished business, so she's stuck on Earth tied to her body, but her body is a zombie. So she has to navigate that. Um, and that's still in pretty early stages, but it'll be coming in the not too distant future.
Well, all that sounds very fun.
Oh, thanks.
Definitely whenever, when volume 2 of that sci-fi anthology that you were talking about comes out, you gotta let us know about it because that's
Oh,
coming up soon
yeah.
and soon.
And
Um,
volume one is a reward in the current Kickstarter. So anyone wants us to catch up with the
oh,
first volume.
yeah, I missed that detail, but that's awesome. Yeah, you guys can catch up by getting the first volume then.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um Well, at this point, we have gone through just about all of the questions I had prepared. Um, so before we wrap up, though, do you have any closing words or anything else you want to let viewers know about before we close out?
um, I think we probably touched on everything I'm working on. Just thanks for having me, and I really think it's so cool everything that C3 is doing, and I'm really glad that I found the group and have enjoyed being a part of the Discord.
Yes. Okay. Well, I also want to take this opportunity to say if you want to know more about Sarah's current and future work, once again, you can check out her Substack, or there's also an Instagram handle below at Sarah C Comics. Um, and of course, make sure you check out the Kickstarter for No Spell Lasts Forever, which I currently have linked in the description. Um, Before we totally stop going live, though, I am going to take a few minutes to talk about what the Columbus Cartoon Coalition has coming up. So I will once again put up our Discord link if you want to find us there. We actually have our next live stream this Monday at 7 p.m. We are going to be continuing our discussion about merchandise. Last month, we did a live stream about merchandise, but we had so many different types of merchandise to go through. We didn't finish getting through them all. So we're going to continue talking about how to like design and produce your own merchandise. So that's on Monday, and actually this Tuesday, also at 7 p.m. is our next book club meeting. So 3C3 also has a graphic novel book club. So even if you are not a comic creator, if you are someone who just enjoys reading comics, you can join us for our book club. This month's book is Chainsaw Man Volume 1. So you can find the information on the book club Discord, or we're also on social media. Find us at c3.ohio. Um, so I think that wraps up just about anything we have to say. I guess my one last note is if you enjoyed this interview and you also have an upcoming project, whether that be a Kickstarter like Sarah's, or maybe just something you're self-publishing or a cool event you're going to go to soon, we are always looking for comic creators to interview. So feel free to reach out to me, AJ. If you are interested in being featured on the Columbus Cartoon Coalition YouTube channel. Um, and I think that now officially wraps this up. So I'll just say thank you again, Sarah.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
anybody watching, and have a good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.